Hello there, it's Jay here from Jay's Vintage Junk, and today I thought we would have a look at this. Excuse me. Now this is a little LCD monitor. I picked two of these up off eBay. They're ex-military. Know very little about them, apart from they're made by Microvitec, and they would have probably cost an absolute fortune when they were new. They're not horrendously old, they're about 10 years old. Like I said, I didn't pay a huge amount for them. I bought two of them and they were about 25 quid for the pair delivered. You can see they're a rather nice little size. Now Microvitec, if some of you may be familiar with that name, that went to school in the 80s and early 90s as I did. Because if you remember the BBC microcomputer, the big square monitors, the big cub monitors they were made by Microvitec. So they've always made like high quality video monitors and that type of equipment. So now the thing with this is, they were sold cheap because the guy said he couldn't test them any further than powering them on. Because if you look on the back here, you've got a standard IEC power input, but then we have two military sockets for, well, that's the whole point. We don't actually know what these monitors input, whether they're VGA, whether they're composite. There's very little information about them. I've tried googling the serial numbers, and all you ever turn up when you Google serial numbers for these are people selling them online as ex-MOD monitors. I will put some power up to it, and I'll show you what it does. These could indeed actually be faulty. They were sold as spares or repair. So I'll hook some power up to it and I will show you what you actually get out of it. We can power it up like that, and I don't know if you saw that, it flashed on for a second and then it flashes off again. There's 4 buttons on the back. Pushing them doesn't seem to do very much. Now it could be that it's actually expecting an input, and that's why it's not displaying anything, because it won't display anything without a input on it. So what I thought we would do on this video is we would crack this thing open and actually see what's inside it, and see if we can figure out what video standard it actually requires. So I'm expecting it's probably VGA. But we could have some other interest. This could be touchscreen. That wouldn't be an impossibility, especially with it being used in some military application. That could be quite cool. The only thing that makes me think possibly that is that we've got one connector there, and we've got a connector there. Now that's 3 pin. Now your old RS-232, you want send, receive, and a ground line, so that could possibly work on 3 pin. This thing was made in 2005, so 12 years old, this one. I think the other one that I've got is made in 2007. You'd have thought everything would have been USB by then, but then again, this is military. It could have been made to replace an old CRT monitor on an older piece of military equipment which did actually run RS-232. I'm only surmising these things. We'll probably know more when we actually get inside this thing. It is absolutely fantastically well built, I will say that. I haven't got a clue what its actual military application would have been. I don't know whether that kind of duck egg bluey colour is any indication to that. The only thing that I remember that was painted duck egg blue military I've seen before was series Land Rover engines. Whenever they reconditioned them, they always painted them duck egg blue. But apart from that, like I said, I don't know. This just seems to be the colour. Let's get that screw off there. Does that get us in? Nope. Let's take these off from here as well. Even if I can't get these working for what I paid for them, I'm just curious to actually have a look at the build quality. I'm sure I could use the case to house another like little 7-inch LCD monitor, and that actually might be quite cool for use in my Land Rover. Some kind of I always keep thinking about building a small computer for actually to live in the Land Rover with sat nav and other various applications on it. So I could possibly utilise one of these for something like that. So it will all depend on what inputs and outputs. VGA is quite a good outcome really, because we can use I've got a little RGB to VGA board that could possibly fit into something like this. They're only cheap little things. I think it was about 13 quid from China, which would allow me to use this with RGB. But anyway, we're in, and right, what have we got here? First of all, it's it seems quite tricky to actually get this thing apart. I think my first port of call is to there's some connectors up here. If I pull them off, there we go. I should hopefully, will that allow me? There we go. That's better access. Now, let's see what we've got. Okay. Interesting. Oops. Now just kick the. Let's just get you back down onto here. Well, we've got an open IC socket there. A big Altera IC there. It'll be FPJ or something like that. Now this, I'll just disconnect this for now so we can get into the back of here. Let's, I think this, I think I may have been correct, and I think we may actually have VGA here. Let's just carefully see if we can disconnect this. There we go. And that's the power in and power out there. We've got some really good earthing. I think what we will do is we'll get this board out here, and then we can get in and see what's in underneath this this where the power supply is here. It does appear that that second socket on the back, the little 3-pin one, is for an external power source. So it looks like this may have been able to be used in a vehicle or something like that and be powered from 12 volts. So it doesn't look like it has anything like a touchscreen capability or anything like that on it. It does look like it is just a monitor, and I think it may, looking at that connection there, I think it may actually be VGA that we've got here. But let's crack on a bit more. Let's get this cover off. Got some interesting IC there, and that's in a turn pin socket, which that kind of gives the militariness away for it, because they do like the top quality, and if you're going to do it right, turn pin socket. That's probably a that's probably not standard. Probably in the standard one, it's in a normal dual wipe IC socket like that, or it's even just soldered straight to the board. But because this is military, that's been mounted in a turn pin socket. It's either some kind of ROM processor or something like that. Right, that should be all the screws out of here. Let's try and lift this out and see what we've got. Interesting. Right. Now this is interesting. And not quite what I was expecting. If we look here, I wonder what this board actually does. We've got something to. It's power supply is here. That is the power supply. This appears to be VGA, so this board is something extra. This board is definitely definitely an extra board of some description. Let's try taking this connector off here and see what we've got. I'm really hoping when I take this off we'll find a standard VGA connector. So let's have a look. It does, unfortunately, it does seem to be a undoing a rather. Right. Let's get that out of there. I'm really not sure what that board's. Oh, looking at this board, there's a LED here which says composite video on it, LED 1. And then we've got IL, LED 2. So this is very interesting. So where does that go? Right, I'm going to take this connector off. Like I said, this could be that this is a VGA monitor with some kind of upscaler board or something like that. It looks weird because it's got solid state voltage regulate voltage DC to DC converters there, 12 volts in, 5 volts out. It's got a pair of them. This is quite interesting. We've obviously got some form of switch mode power supply going on there, as well as the standard power supply there. So we'll get this VGA cable off and then we can have a look what that connector is properly. He had a few more. In fact, I wish I'd have bought a couple more of these now. He had a few more for sale and I just picked 2 of them up. Right, is that off? Not quite yet. This is definitely fiddly. There we go, that's out. And there we do actually have a VGA, well, we've got the correct number of pins for VGA, and looking at the cable, let's get that off there. Let's get that out of the way for the moment. And this is what the cable we've got is. So that is off this main board here. That plugs in down there like that. And then this, that's most interesting. Right. So we may very well have composite here. This board here, it looks like will take either possibly RGB. In fact, I found something on here. This is a video interface PCB. So what it looks like we've got is indeed we have RGB here in them 3 connectors, and we have composite here. They're from the 2 military style connectors on the back of the monitor, and this board here basically converts that to VGA, which we have here. Now what I'm going to do then, if that is the case, I'm going to disconnect that side of it, because I'll have to do some more investigation into this board. But it does look like this board is actually a composite and RGB to VGA. It's like the cheap Chinese ones that we all know and love, that we get for arcade boards and for getting our Atari STs and Amigas to work on VGA monitors. This actually looks like what we've got is a proper military version of that, or at least something that is used by the MOD, an MOD piece of equipment for that exact same purpose. It has RGB and composite here, and it outputs it to VGA there to send to a standard VGA monitor. Let's try and disconnect this gently. Obviously that those military connectors are damn hard and rather expensive to get hold of. Move some of this out of the way. That all seems okay. Right, now, I honestly don't know what some of this stuff does. I think I can power the VGA monitor up with that disconnected. What my planning here is, I just want to see if I can get the actual VGA monitor to operate. If we can do that, then we'll go a little bit further and we'll have a look at that. I mean, I could be wrong. It's just what I can see on there. It does look very much like that's what it actually does. I'm just going to temporarily screw this back together, well, and just have that VGA output sticking out, and we're going to try putting a VGA signal up it and see what actually happens, and see whether this monitor works. I can see a part 2 of this this little project coming on. That's quite. If that is what it is, I am going to be super delighted, and I'm going to be getting back on eBay and snapping up any more of these that I spot. Obviously, just making this video now, everyone is going to run out there and grab as many of these as they can. We need to connect that back up, I think. Okay, I think that's everything we need connected up to get this monitor to actually fire up. Let's put some power back into it. Now I am safe here because obviously that's switched off now. I have put the power supply back in, and the power supply is actually rather nicely encased inside, so I haven't got any risk of cooking myself. Let's just make sure that fires back up. Is the monitor going to fire up? I'm not sure. Anyway, bear with me. I will be back in a. Right, we're back. And okay, what I've done, I've reassembled the monitor. I actually, when I tried it before, I actually not reconnected the power from the PSU at the back there. That board that we're looking at is actually integrated as part of the PSU. But I hadn't connected that board back to the actual LCD panel. I've done that. I've also connected that VGA output, as we can see here, via that connector into this old laptop, so we can see if we can get the output from the laptop onto the screen. Now, if I power the screen back up, we'll see we have some difference on the actual screen that we had before. But as you can see, it doesn't look that good. Let's just try this. If I go into Windows on the laptop, and we will see if we can get the through Windows. We can see if we can get this to switch VGA outputs to the monitor. There we go. It's actually done it automatically. But as you can see, it's not healthy. It's not happy, this monitor. It's obviously got some major issues. I don't know if it's actually in colour or whether it's a black and white monitor. Now, could we be just over the resolution. Let's just try setting the resolution of the screen down somewhat. Go to settings here, because I mean that's 1024 by 768. Let's knock it right down if we can. Right, there we go. That's about as basic as we can get. 256 colours, 640 by 480. Let's apply that. Okay. Okay. And as you can see, it's still it should at 640 by 480, and that was just a stock VGA monitor. It should be able to display something. Let's just try. No, it's not. It's obviously not working properly, this monitor. I mean, we can prove it's definitely getting a signal from the laptop, because if we unplug the VGA here, like that, the monitor should realise. There we go. It realised it's lost its signal and it's powered off. If we put the signal back up, it should come back on. And as we see, yeah, it's powered back on, but it's just not. There's obviously something wrong with the processing in this actual monitor. It's actually something to do with the probably the LCD display driver or something like that. I think. Let's just try the buttons on the back. Now these weren't doing anything previously, and still, I mean, the buttons on the back that actually control things are doing. They're not doing anything, you know, like your contrast, your brightness and things like that. So yeah, it is definitely faulty. But I think what the interesting thing is going to be is that board inside. That obviously we've not fully looked into it yet, but it does look like that board will take RGB or composite and spew out VGA. So like I said, I think this is going to be part 1 of a part 2 video. We've obviously seen that the LCD, if anything else, I'm going to have to look further into it and see if I can possibly repair it. But before that, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that interesting board out the back, make a lead up from that military connector, just see if I can get a composite and an RGB signal into it. Plug it into a standard VGA monitor and see indeed whether we get a signal out of it and it is actually a composite and RGB video converter, VGA converter. So I'm going to leave that there for now. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.